Welcome the student body, and I welcome our guest today. As I told you in days previous that we're going to have a powerful assembly today. This story is going to be shared with you, and you might ask why, and it's simple. Teens think they're on earth forever. Simply not true. But I think the impact and the objective of today is to make sure that we give you some options and put some things in your minds so that you can be here for a long time. We have three guests here today that deserve the utmost respect to share their their story and their goals for you today of grief and honoring victims. Our expectation for you today is to listen and learn. That's what we expect of you. We'd like to make sure that you put your cell phones away and be respectful and welcome our people with open arms. Sitting behind me is Frank Severino from the County Attorney's Office. He's going to lead our discussion today. Also behind me is Jenny Miller, a parent who has a big impact on today's assembly. And I'd like to thank all the folks that helped us put this assembly together for you folks today. I truly think this is going to be a great hour and 15 minutes to 20 minutes presentation. So enjoy it and make sure that you think about the things that you learned today and carry those with you during spring break. And with prom coming up, all the different times when you have opportunities maybe not to drive in a safe way. I also would like to thank the PBIS student team for organizing the event and leading off the Green Day, wearing the shirts. I think that shows some team spirit for our school. So thank you to you folks and students who have done those things. Also, the DOT has been very supportive of our initiative here at the high school, and they're going to support us over the next 3 years in this initiative, and we feel grateful to be working with people who really know the data on transportation. So with that, I'm going to leave it to Mr. Severino, and let's give him a warm welcome.
I usually don't get any woohoos, so I appreciate that. You know, it's a beautiful day today, right? The sun's shining, spring break is upon us, and we're all in a good mood. And I don't mean to take away from the enthusiasm that you have for today, because it is a good day. We're here really to talk to you about a situation that you may not even completely understand how big an impact that this has had on the families that are going to be here in front of you today, as well as our Central Iowa community. But it's an important message that we really want to talk to you about. And before I actually start talking to you about what happened back in May of 2011, I kind of want you to think about, put away your phone, put away what your plans are for this weekend or for next week. And what I'd really like you to do is just kind of stop and think about, who are the people that are the most important people in your lives? Who is the individual or individuals that you go to when things are going really well? Who is it that you lean on when you're not having such a good day? I want you to imagine who that person is in your mind, and we're going to come back to that in just a second. Now, when we talk about the crash that occurred back in May of 2011, and you're going to see some photographs of the crash itself, and they're not meant to cause you to be upset. They're really designed for you to see what can happen. But before we get to that, I think it's important that we talk about something else that you're going to probably be tempted to do at some point in your life if it hasn't already occurred. And that's the drinking and driving temptation that sometimes is given to us. And if you could go ahead and go to the first slide, please. You know, when we talk about drinking and driving, all of you that have had driver's ed or have seen any of the commercials, you know that drinking and driving is a bad idea, right? And we know when we open up the newspaper that when we see the names of the people that got caught with drunk driving, we think, well, they had some negative consequences happen to them. Most likely lost their driver's license, their insurance rates went up, that they may or may not have had to pay fines or serve some time in jail. And, you know, some of you may say to yourself, well, those are the individuals who were just unlucky, right? They're the ones that got caught. But see, you have to understand the perspective of where we come from the county attorney's office, because we look at those individuals as being the individuals that were lucky, the ones that didn't kill themselves or didn't kill anybody else. Because what happens is if you're intoxicated, you're high on drugs or alcohol, and you get into a car crash and your erratic driving has caused the death of somebody else, you're guilty of vehicular homicide. And vehicular homicide, if you could go to the next slide, is much different than just getting a drunk driving. Sure, it includes the fact that you operated a motor vehicle while you're intoxicated and somebody dies. But the penalties associated with that are significant. Because instead of getting the fine or maybe having to do some community service hours, you have to go to prison for 25 years. And it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter if you're the principal of the school, you're a police officer, or you're a 16-year-old student at Sadell High School. You have to go to prison. And when you go to prison and you cannot get out for any reason, you're placed in there with other people. And they don't have a special prison or a special place for you to go in the prison system when you go in. You're in with people that are charged with crimes such as rape and murder and robbery. And that's who you live with for the next several decades of your life. Now, sometimes what happens is, and I've told you, that you cannot get probation. There's not an option. And so sometimes what happens is that people panic, right? And they figured, well, if I get into this crash and I get myself out of this situation, then I won't get caught, right? Well, the law is even more harsh on the individuals that actually try and flee the scene. Because if you do try and flee the scene, it's not just that you have to go to prison for 25 years. You actually have to serve 70% of the sentence before you can get out. Now ask yourself this, folks. Most of you have not even been on this planet that long. You would have to spend that entire amount of time before you are able to be released from prison. So every dream that you have today of what you want to do with your life, every vacation or every place in the world that you want to see, will not happen during that period of time that you're incarcerated. And so when you get out, you're a felon, right? And then you're required to, in addition to be a felon, you're required to pay money to the individual's family that you killed. So in addition to living with the burden of knowing that you killed another person, another family, you also have to financially go out and you have to pay. And I'd ask yourself, do you really think as a felon, with this on your record, that there are going to be very many people that are going to give you a good job, that you can pay that money off? This is going to be a lifelong debt. For what? For a few minutes of danger, for a few minutes maybe of happiness? I just really want you to stop and think, because from the county attorney's office perspective, if we never had to prosecute another vehicular homicide case again, it would be a great day. So you say to yourself, okay, I'm not going to drink and drive. I listened to what they said in driver's ed, and I've heard loud and clear the negative consequences of what you've just talked about. But I'm a good kid. What about the good kids? Well, I'd like to have you take a look at the boy in the first slide here. I'd like you to look at Connor, because he was a good kid. I'd like you to look at the boy in the baseball cap, Kip, and he was also a good kid. They were kids that were active in their schools, they were active in their communities, and they were deeply loved by their family and their friends. And they're gone. Those two boys are gone from our presence. And they're gone because of a few decisions that impacted many people's lives for forever. So let's talk a little bit about that. Because there was absolutely no drugs, no alcohol involved in this crash. And the boys that were involved in this crash were good friends. They were best friends, and they enjoyed spending that time together. And so at the beginning of this presentation, when I stood up in front of you, I said, who was it that you lean on in those tough times? Who is it that you like to hang out with on those good days? To Sam, it was the two boys that you see up on the screen there. And so we go back to May of 2011. You know, we're almost coming up on an anniversary of when this happened. And during that period of time, people were excited about what was going to happen for the summer. And they were hanging out at one of the boys' house playing video games. And like, you know, young boys do, they get hungry sometimes. And so they got into a car, and they ended up going to Bebop's out in the Altoona area, and they grabbed something to eat. They got into this car right here. And this was a car that Sam, the driver, the student who attends Southeast Polk High School right now, had saved his money up for and bought. Now you look at that car, and I look at that car, we may see things differently. You look at that car and you say, well, it's kind of an older car. But when I was growing up, that was a car that was a pretty cool car. And there's something about that car that you really can't see from looking at the outside of it. You'd have to open up the hood to look underneath to know really a lot more about that car. Because see, that car has a huge engine in it. An engine that will allow that car not to go the speed limit, but to go well over 100 miles an hour. And that combination of speed and a pole that you're going to hear about in a few minutes is what cost us those two valuable members of our community. So what happens is the boys get in the car, they've gotten something to eat, and then they do something that you guys do all the time. They go to a girl's house where they sit around and they watch movies and they hang out. And then it's time to go home. And when it was time to go home, we're out in kind of a rural area. And you know, it's real kind of similar to the area where you guys go to school. There's long stretches of road where people can go fast, right? And so what they started to do is they're heading from Altoona back to Des Moines because it was time to be at home. This wasn't 3 o'clock in the morning. You know, this was at a time when all of you are most likely heading home from your activities. As they started to go down this stretch of road, Sam's the driver, Kip's in the front seat, Connor's in the back seat, and they start heading home. And Sam pushes on the accelerator. And he pushes down harder and harder and harder. And before you know it, that blue car that we just saw is going well over 100 miles an hour. And they actually passed a car that was heading in the same direction, heading west. And at the time that they passed that car, the driver of that car told us that it was like the car he was in was standing still. That literally this car was flying past at over 100 miles an hour. As you can see from this viewpoint right here, this is the intersection where they went through. And there is a stop sign there that Sam ran through when he was going over 100 miles an hour. And, you know, Sam hit his head during this crash, and we lost 2 of the boys in this crash. And so it's not real easy for us to be able to tell you exactly what happened because Sam doesn't remember certain parts of what didn't happen. But we can tell you with certainty they were going very, very fast. And we can tell you with certainty that they blew through this stop sign. And there's a reason why I believe it happened is if you look at this intersection, there's a little dip in it. And so if any of you have been on a roller coaster and you go down that first big hill and you feel that feeling of your stomach dropping and then quickly coming back up at the next hill, that's what I believe that they were attempting to do, is kind of go through that intersection and maybe get that little rise or that little feeling. But the problem is that when they came over the top of the hill, Sam lost control and he hit a mailbox. And when Sam hit the mailbox, it caused him to lose control and go into the ditch. And you can see the tire marks in the road, and then you can see a pole that's a little bit farther up in the picture. And this is a photograph that is taken the next day. The item that's right below the pole is a tornado siren. Okay, a big, strong object that's supposed to withstand tornado-like winds. And you can see that tornado siren in this photograph. And this is a photograph of looking back towards the intersection. And you can see that there's some paint, and you can see there's some tire marks. And what literally happened is that the front of the car the whole vehicle was traveling so fast, but the front of the car on Kip's side of the vehicle and Connor's side of the vehicle hit that pole. And when it hit that pole, it literally took something that's to withstand tornado-like winds, and it just moved that pole completely back and away from where it was originally set. And it didn't snap the pole. But what it did to the car is it caused the car to violently spin in the air, around and around and around. And the investigators that came out and watched and looked at what happened had never seen anything happen like this before. But literally what happened, it wasn't hitting the pole that caused the car to split into two pieces, because it literally ended up in two separate pieces. It was the violent momentum of being spun around that it was just like you took a piece of cheese and you broke it in half. And part of the car ended up almost a football field away on one side of the pole, and the other half, with the three boys in it with their seatbelts on, spun through the air and then landed in this position where you can see the light, the tail light off in the distance right below where the police car is. When you drive fast and you hit something, that's what happens to a car. Now, some of you may look at that and say to yourself, well, clearly the law enforcement or the medics came and cut the car in half to get the boys out. That is what happened when the car tore in half. That is nothing that man did. That is exactly what happened from the speed. And if you look at the front of the vehicle, you're going to see it's not crashed in like a tin can. It's gone. The front part of the car is literally been severed into a different area. And Kip was in the front seat, and Connor was in the back seat, and Sam was in the front seat as the driver. That's the front of the car, folks. That's what's left of it from the distance, and you can look off and see where that same police officer's lights are in relationship to where that pole is that they hit. And that white object that's out there, that's the license plate and the other pieces of the car that we just showed you. So what happened? People came upon the crash scene, obviously completely shocked by what they saw. Because of the impact, because of what happened to Kip, he was not able to survive any amount of time other than what happened at that scene. Even if he would have been taken to the hospital and rushed there and they would have worked on him as hard as they possibly could, there wouldn't have been any way to save him. We lost Kip right there at that tornado pole. Now Connor was able to go from the location where that crash occurred to a hospital, and he fought. And he fought like all of you would want to fight to cheat death. But the injury to him was as significant as it was to Kip, and we lost him at the hospital. Now, Sam also made it to the hospital. He had lost consciousness and he had suffered an injury to his face, but he made it to the hospital. And some people, after looking at what you see in those pictures, would say to yourself, well, you know, he's really lucky. I mean, he's lucky that he wasn't killed in the crash. And I think that's one way to look at things, is that he was lucky. But I think you have to ask yourself this question, honestly. Is he really the lucky one out of this? He killed his two best friends. Do you think he felt lucky when he woke up in the hospital and saw what he had done, heard what he had done, confronted or saw the parents of his two best friends that he had killed, or to walk into the high school knowing that you have taken away a friend, a valuable member of the community? Do you really think that that's a lucky feeling? I think that there's some days that Sam would tell you that he wasn't the lucky one out of this. So what happened is that he was charged with a crime. He was charged with 2 counts of vehicular homicide. Not for drinking and driving, but for driving in a reckless manner. And he went to court and he pled guilty to those charges. And part of his obligation in this case is that he needs to come out and he needs to talk to people. But it isn't just that he needs to do it. He really wants to do it. He wants each of you to hear from him personally how this has impacted him and how his decision in that few seconds of time that he thought he was having fun have really changed things for everybody for forever. Now, because his case is still pending in the court system, I can't tell you exactly what happened to him, but I can tell you that he accepted responsibility and pled guilty. Now, he's going to come out here in a few minutes, and he's going to talk to you, and he's going to share from you his experiences. And he works off of a PowerPoint presentation. And, you know, this is not a proud moment for him. He doesn't walk in here with a big grin on his face, and he's not going to open up to you in a way that's going to make you feel like, wow, he is really speaking completely from the heart. And it's not that he's not speaking from the heart. It's just really hard, folks. He has to live every day with what he did. And so I'm asking you to understand what he's feeling, what he's what he is feeling and appreciating. And I'm asking you to just give him your undivided attention and just listen to what he has to say. Because what he is saying to you is really powerful, and it takes a tremendous amount of courage to get up here and say it.
I want to introduce myself. My name is Sam Wilkins, and I'm a senior at Southeast Polk High School. I'm here today to tell you my story. The story is about choices, consequences, forgiveness and redemption, and empowerment. On May 21st, 2011, it was the spring of my sophomore year. I made a dangerous and immature choice. I chose to drive too fast. What happened as a result of that was 2 people died. The 2 victims that died were my closest friends. I want to tell you about them so the memories can live on and something good can arise from a tragedy. Kip Rogan was a class clown, a joker, and always had a comeback. Connor Miller had a distinct laugh, a big smile, and was always having fun. We were best friends. It was impossible to separate us. Our hangout spot was the man cave in Connor's basement. While we were there, we played Xbox a lot. Whenever we stayed the night, we always slept in the same spot. We never snuck out. We weren't those type of kids. Usually on the weekends, we'd go up to Ankeny and go to Buffalo Wild Wings. We call it B-dubs. On the way there, we'd sing the remix to Ignition. We never drank or did drugs. We didn't think it would make us cooler if we did. We didn't have to follow others. We made our own choices. That choice is just one of the reasons we bonded so well. I want to briefly touch on my relationship with Connor and Kip's parents, Jenny and Bill Miller. I've always been very close to Jenny and Bill. Connor and I were like brothers. Connor's parents and I continue to have a close relationship. I feel very lucky to have them in my life. Carla Rogan. I didn't know Carla as well, but she raised a really funny and awesome son. I had only known Kip for a few months, but he and I grew close very quickly. Like Connor, I felt he was an outstanding person and friend. Carla did a great job. It's not easy for me, but I want to tell you about the night of the car accident. Friday, May 21st. The night started off at Connor's house. We were playing Xbox when we decided to go pick up Kip. After picking up Kip, we returned to Connor's house for a little while. After a while, we decided that we were hungry and went to Bebop's to get some food. After leaving Bebop's, we went over to a friend's house. There, we were posting goofy pics on Facebook, eating grapes, and watching movies. We had to leave because we were trying to make curfew. My last memory that night was putting my shoes on, leaving. I was driving my '92 Camaro that I had saved up my own money for. I bought it when I was just 15. We rode around a lot in that car. I don't remember the accident except for bits and pieces. That is not uncommon in trauma. It's the brain's way of protecting you. The evidence pointed that I was driving extremely fast, and I ran a stop sign. I slammed on the brakes, and my car ran over 2 mailboxes and slammed into a large tornado siren pole. It was so violent, it tore the car into 2 pieces. I have a few brief flashbacks. The sheriff talked to me as I sat by the side of my car in a state of shock. A moment in the ambulance ride, I asked the paramedic if they were okay. They were Kip and Connor. I woke up in an emergency room, feeling stitches being put into my mouth. My parents were with me, and my 2 brothers joined them. I had severe head trauma, and I couldn't even remember I had been in an accident for more than a few moments. Every 5 minutes, I repeated the same questions. Where am I? Followed by, was I in an accident? This went on for hours. At one point, they wheeled me out for tests and wheeled Connor into the adjoining stall. His parents were gently asking him to hold on. My parents were stunned by the sight. They didn't know it was Connor. They didn't know Kip was in the morgue. 9 or 10 hours later, I woke up in a hospital room. I could hear my older brother, Jordan, in the hallway crying and asking, how are we going to tell him? My memory was fuzzy, but hearing that, I knew something terrible had happened. Jenny came in and asked my parents if I wanted to say goodbye to Connor as they were taking him off life support. But my parents had not yet told me, so I could not be there for Connor's last moments. When my parents thought I was ready, they held my hand and told me that I had been in a bad car accident, and that Kip and Connor had not survived. I don't know how to describe my reaction other than I was shell-shocked. I cried for 20 minutes in my hospital bed, but I never had a chance to really sink in because there were visitors with me constantly. This continued when I got home. I never had alone time to absorb what happened or to begin grieving. Everyone else was going through the rituals. There was a huge procession and candlelighting in Altoona for the boys. I wasn't able to attend because I was still in the hospital. When I was released, I went back to the school for a half day on advice of the school administration. The reason was, this gave people a chance to talk to me in school, to give me well wishes, and ask questions before the funerals. I was scared, but I got through it. It also allowed for the funerals to respect Kip and Connor and not be about me. The first time I remember seeing Jenny and Bill after the tragedy was in the hospital. I felt devastated knowing how much they were hurting. I saw Carla Rogan for the first time after the accident at the visitation. I was really nervous about approaching her. I was amazed she hugged me, even though she had lost her only child. She treated me kindly and compassionately at the moment when I was most afraid. Kip's dad talked to me privately. He held me tightly for a long time, and he was very emotional. But like the others, he was very concerned about me. The parents were angry and sick with grief, but amazingly, they were really concerned about me. That is the power of forgiveness. They dug deep for that inner strength, and it gave them the power over their lives. My family and friends kept a vigil over me. They didn't want me to do something drastic. The funerals were held on the same day. That was hard for everyone. They were huge. The boys had a lot of friends. It was really comforting to see the outpouring from the schools and the community for the boys' families, and even for me. But it was also a very difficult day. I remember seeing Connor's little brother, Cohen, crying in Bill's arms during the service. He didn't understand. I remember after the funeral, Carla walking alone in the parking lot, lost in her sadness. I knew without her son, she was all alone. Kip was her only child. It would take almost 3 months before I went back to school and before the aftermath really hit me. I spent the summer somewhat secluded. I wasn't ready to face everything. I was still in shock and denial. My girlfriend Brittany was always with me, and a lot of people reached out to me, including Jenny and Bill Miller. I held up very well on the outside, but I was broken on the inside. I lost 40 pounds. I struggled in school. I was failing. I was depressed. I felt guilty. I was worried the families and the whole community hated me. I was scared because I was going to be charged with the crime of manslaughter or vehicular homicide. Running a stop sign in Iowa is reckless driving as defined by law. I was even angry inside. I felt I was a good person and a good friend, yet black clouds lined my days. I miss my friends terribly. I still do, and I always will. I think about them every day. What kept me going was Kip and Connor. I didn't want to let them down. I knew they were pulling for me to do well. People were so willing to help me. But I had to want to help myself to get better. My mom told me I had 2 choices. She said I could sink or I could swim. I chose to swim. I received counseling from a therapist, and I mustered all my courage to keep moving forward with my life. I faced my fear and anger through my trial and all its consequences. I stayed out for football, even though I spent 4 days in the hospital with heat exhaustion. I went out for wrestling. I didn't miss a day of school or a practice. I asked for help from many people, friends, families, teachers, coaches, and I got it. I was able to wrestle the state duels at Wells Fargo Arena. I was a 3.5 honor roll student by the end of the year. There were times when I felt alone and scared, and Kip and Connor came to me and gave me signs and advice. On the football field, for instance, I just knew they were with me. I know they are here with me now. I've learned a lot of lessons in my journey. What I want you to know, that on that night, I was not thinking about the consequences of my actions. I never thought about people dying. I have never purposely hurt anyone in my life. There was no intent. There was only living in the moment. But I did hurt somebody, and now I have to live with the burden of that guilt every second of every day, and it will never go away. I can't bring my friends back, but I hope I can perhaps save a life by talking to you. Because in many ways, I am you. I am just a normal teenager, just like you. Growing up fast. Homework, friends, families, my cat, and my dog. I thought I was immune to this kind of pain and tragedy, but I wasn't, and neither are you. Part of my personal redemption is to try and help others learn from what I've had to learn the hard way. It's not always instinctual for teenagers to think about others or consider the consequences of their actions or even their own mortality. But that's a part of being mature. Owning up to the fact that you are responsible for your choices is what separates adults from children. If you are responsible enough to drive a car, you have to be responsible for other people's lives, not just your own. I want to add here that if I had chosen to drink or do drugs, or even text when I was driving that night, not only would my 2 friends be dead, I'd be in prison with parole for most of my life. I am very grateful that I did not let anybody else influence me in making choices that would have harmed me and others, such as drinking and driving. I have learned that for every single action, there is a reaction. That is the natural order in life, whether you are scientific or religious. Every action you take, no matter how small or large, will have a consequence. Taking responsibility for your choices will empower you in your life, your education, your career, and your relationships. Your journey will be in your command if you are accountable to yourself. In other words, you are the captain of your ship. Because I was granted the gift of my life, I want to give back by doing well in my life. I am taking college-level classes and looking forward to college. I want to pursue a career where I can help others, probably a medical career. In conclusion, our actions are like throwing a stone in a pond. They always have ripples that will eventually touch others. You are responsible for yourself, but you are also responsible not to harm others. My life will never be the same, but I have chosen to go on and make the most of my God-given potential. That is what my friends Kip and Connor would expect me to do. They would not want me to give up on life because their lives were cut short. I hope you choose to live mindfully and with high regard and respect for everyone you meet. And you should expect the same high regard and respect for yourself wherever you go. I want you to think about your actions and how they can put others into situations they wouldn't choose for themselves. I want you to understand, if you own up to your choices, you will be stronger and more respected than you are when you make excuses. I want you to know that everything you need is inside of you, and your family and true friends will believe in you and will be there to help you find it. I can't imagine a bigger mistake than causing the death of a friend, but that's what I deal with. If I can overcome this, you can overcome the adversity in your life. I found my way, and you can too. I want you to remember this. Your mistakes do not define you. What the situation of your life is does not define you. What defines you is how you deal with those situations and how you turn the situations in your life into the most positive outcome you can. You will make mistakes. Mistakes are stepping stones to a better person, a better life. Admitting your mistakes and learning from them is how you grow into a person of character. Your character is what will help you get through your toughest times. Your character is what endures even when your physical body doesn't. These are the qualities I hope you strive for: accountability, gratitude, and courage. Lastly, I want to remind you to always love yourself and to forgive yourself, because that is how you honor the gift of life. I want to say thank you to Kip Rogan and Connor Miller for being the best friends a guy could have, for accepting and liking me just as I was, for making me laugh time and time again, for being role models to me in your words and actions. I know one day we will meet again. Thank you for taking time out to listen to me today. I want to tell the families how sorry I am for the pain my actions have caused you. I hope you remember Kip and Connor forever, for in your memories, they are immortal. Thank you.
That was a very difficult thing to do, and we have been to a number of different schools speaking to different people, and each time I hear Sam speak, it moves me because I know that he genuinely is sorry for what has happened, and I think it's important for him to know, because we truly believe this. We forgive him because we know he truly is sorry for what has happened. The next person that I'd like to introduce you to is Jenny Miller. She's Connor's mother. She's going to share with you some perspective on what it's like and how this has impacted her life. So please pay attention.
I'm going to start out talking a little bit about Connor and the type of person he was for the 16 years that he was with us. Connor was a child that he was very happy. He loved life. He always had a smile on his face. And as Sam said, he had a very distinctive laugh, and it was, I don't know how to describe it, but it was kind of goofy. But that's what I like and I think about, and it makes me smile to this day. Connor had a character that I think every parent would want their child to have. He was very respectful. He liked to have fun, but he knew when it was appropriate and the appropriate way to go about having a good time. He was a very good role model. He has a brother that was 6.5 years younger than him, and his name is Cohen, and the most important thing to Connor was his little brother. He was always with him, always around. The boys were at our house every weekend, and not once did Connor ever say to me, "Mom, you need to get Cohen out of here. He's bothering us." He was one of the guys right along with the boys. I never had a problem letting him be with them because I knew they were down there just having fun and being goofy and not going to do anything that was inappropriate that Cohen should not be seen. These kids were they were good kids. Connor was the light of my life. He always will be. I feel very blessed that his father and I were the ones that were chosen to be his parents. I feel that I was blessed by God, that I was the one chosen to be his mother. He taught me a lot in life, and he still is. He is my role model. He is a lot of the reason why I stand up here and speak with all of you. is to hope that you all think about what you do in your life and how it affects yourself and other people, whether it's in a good way or a bad way. There's so many good things you can do in your life that would make a difference. And be that person that makes the positive difference. Don't be the person that is, going to make a difference in someone's life and it not be in the positive way. Unfortunately, no matter what we do in life, it always has an effect on someone. By Sam not thinking about his actions that night has totally changed the lives of my family, the Rogan family, the Wilkins family, and even just a lot of families in the communities not having their friends anymore to physically be there with them. That night, Sam never thought that all this would happen, but it did, and it can happen to anyone. So the message that we want to send is, please just think about your actions, think about what you're doing. And it's not only yourselves you need to think about, but it's your friends that are in your car with you. It's the innocent people driving down the street with you. Anything can happen. You don't know. So just be smart and make good choices. I had some notes on here. I'm not sure how to use this very well without going here. I have been very supportive, and so is my husband, of Sam from the get-go. These kids were at our house every weekend and during the week, and you build relationships with these kids, and you care about them. They're like your own. You love them. You want what's best for them. I have treated Sam as I would want somebody to treat my child if that was my child in Sam's shoes. I cannot turn my back on Sam. I will always be here to support him, and I will always be one of his biggest supporters through his whole life, whether it's a happy time or a bad time. I do that for myself, and I do it for Sam, but mostly I do it for my son Connor, because I know that's what he would have wanted out of me as his mom. That was the type of person he was. Connor was not a grudge holder, and he would not want me to treat his best friend badly. So that I will never turn my back on Sam. He always has my support, and he knows that, and so does his family. I've also chose to forgive Sam, not only for his sake, but for our sake also. I feel that if I don't have that forgiveness, that I'm always going to be stuck in a black hole in my life and never be able to see good out of that. It's hard when you're in a situation that we're in to even possibly think of anything positive or good that could come out of a situation. But we are trying to take this situation and make positive and good decisions out of it by coming and speaking to each and every one of you to think about your actions. I would not want any of your parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, anyone that cares about you to have to go through losing a child or standing by you for doing a horrible act that you caused. It has not been easy for our family, and the Wilkins are on another side of it than we are, and I know it's been difficult for them too. So please, all of you, just think about your actions and make good choices. I know that you guys probably get tired of hearing that, because I'm sure it's drilled into you by your teachers, everyone at school, your parents, but they do that because they care about you and they want you to have a successful life. And as an adult, that's what all adults want out of the younger generation. I don't know any of you out there, but I care deeply for each and every one of you, and I just really want you to think about what you do and try to prevent another tragedy from happening, and we don't have to lose any more children, because it's very difficult. So at this time, I'd like to say thank you for your time and listening to us, and I love the message that you guys have on your shirts. And when I read that, I'm like, that is so fitting for our message that we also would like to try to get out to you. You guys make your own decisions. You are the ones that make your choices in your life. It's not your friends sitting next to you, it's you. So you make your choices, and you are the only ones that have, when you make that choice, you are the ones that have to deal with it. So make your choices and make them wisely. Connor had a friend that lived up the street from us, and he wrote us a poem, and I just want to share this with you. And it just kind of describes Connor a little bit. And the other night I was going through some of the things from after the funeral, and I found this, and it just really touched my heart again, and I just thought it'd be great to share with all of you, and I haven't shared this at any other school that we've gone to. It's titled Perfection. For Connor Miller, we love you, we miss you, we won't forget you. And it goes on. Nobody knows how to live life to the fullest, and nobody knows how to be the best. To be perfect was only achieved once. To smile for 16 years, to grow for 16 years, and yet to push yourself for 16 years. For 16 years of happiness, 16 years of love, 16 years of having it all. How to be the best is to be perfect, and to be perfect, you need to be Connor Miller. God needed another mold, and that boy is the perfect one. And this was written by a good friend of his from his heart, and he wrote it, I believe, the next day after we lost Connor. And receiving that as a mother was very touching to my heart, to know that my son, somebody could write a poem like that about my child. So I just wanted to share all that with you all. Thank you.
You know, I really appreciate Jenny and both Carla being here, because they take time out of their work schedule each time that we get together to share some feelings. And you have to remember what point this was in their life. I mean, this is the lowest point of their life. And for them to have the courage to stand up and to share this information with you, I know the boys would be very, very proud of their mothers. The next person that's going to talk to you is Carla Rogan. She is Kip's mother, and she's going to share some of the perspectives, some of the things that she's gone through this situation.
If Kip would be here, he'd help me with this iPad. I just got it, and you know, I'm 55 years old. I don't know how to run it yet, so bear with me for just a second here. I don't like being in the pulpit. I don't want to be a preacher, so I'm going to step on the side here and walk around. I would like to take this opportunity for Sadell to thank us for being here. I'm overwhelmed at the response that we're getting. Sam, this is hard for him. He's done very well through all this. As of today, I think I've counted that we've done about 6,000 students throughout the metro area. I don't know how many's here today, but you'll be added into that statistic here. I'd like to say thank you to Frank. He's the assistant district attorney. Without him, this would not be possible. When this all happened, we were so devastated. But we wanted to do something for the community because these were two good boys. They were wonderful boys. They had high goals. And those goals were cut short. If I would stand back and sit back and not do good with Kip's legacy, that wouldn't be a very good mother. You might think that this will never happen to you. Being my only child, Kip was a joy. He was the only grandson on each side of the family. And he came to us when I was 38 years old. He had a lot of respect for older people, and he had respect for me. He started out at East High School. Does anybody in here know of Kip and Connor? Oh man, look at the hands. Matt Stone walked me down here. I got lost, by the way. I was in the middle school. But Matt helped me find this beautiful auditorium here. Matt played baseball with Kip, and I'm sure some of you other people played sports with him too. But when he was at East High School, this is one memory I have, and this will always be in the yearbook, 2011. And it's got pictures of him. His activities was football, hanging out with friends, texting, and all that basic stuff. Role model, his mom. Because she helps me through everything and was always there for me. Why am I interesting? Now you might understand this, I don't. Because I have a lot of swag. Tell me what that means later, will you please? Relationship status. No one yet. But to all the single ladies out there, I'm still looking. Those of you that knew Kip, that's the way he was all the time. Didn't matter if you were playing baseball. I can remember a specific story that sticks in my mind. He was playing football for East, and the team lost. And in the locker room, all the team members were blaming the quarterback. And the coaches came to me later and said that they were very proud of Kip because he stood up and he turned around to the team and he said this was a team effort. No one, all of us are to blame. Until this day, that young man that was the quarterback has never forgotten that. When I got the call that night, I was getting ready for bed. I've worked at Mercy Hospital for 38 years. I'm in the medical profession, and I deal with sickness and death every day. I did not think that it would ever happen to me. Jenny called me and said, "Have you heard from the boys?" I said, "Yeah, I just heard from Kip. They're watching a movie." And he said, "Hey, Mom, come on, let me watch the movie." That's the last time I heard from Kip. When Jenny got on the phone, the helicopters went over my house. The sirens were going off. And Billy, her husband, got the phone call from the hospital saying the boys were in an accident. My whole life changed in an instant. Jenny said, "Get to the hospital, the boys have been in an accident." Thinking, okay, I'm going to go there. Kip's had a broken leg for the first time. I'm just going to take care of him. I get to the hospital, and he's not there. At the same time, the sheriff's walking behind me and asked me if I was Carla Rogan, Kip Rogan's mother. I said yes. He said, "Well, you're going to have to go identify your son with me. I'm very sorry, but he didn't make it." The whole family dynamics changed. Whether it was right or wrong, Kip's dad did not go with me to the hospital, nor did he go with me to the morgue. I can't answer that. Only he can. But it was a devastating, devastating thing that you have to go do. The morgue is not somewhere where you want to say goodbye to your child. Although Kip had no visual on the outside that I could see, he looked like he was resting on this morgue cart. This is something you don't want to get in the mail. And it's an autopsy report. And I truly believe that Kip died instantly. I truly believe he hit the tornado pole along with Connor, but Connor was in the back seat. There's 20-some pages here. I'm not going to read you the whole thing. But I am going to read you the conclusion of what happened to Kip. I think you need to understand that a car is a weapon, and it's not the car that does the damage. It's a person that's responsible. Contusions, abrasions, fracture of the base of the skull, hemorrhages, laceration of the midbrain junction, multiple contusions, multiple bilateral rib fractures, fracture of the sternum, and extensive fracture of the pelvis, which is down here, probably from the seat belt. Bilateral hemothoraxes. Now I want you to pay attention to this. Closed fracture of the right ankle. Rupture of the diaphragm, thoracic aorta ruptured, lacerations of the liver and spleen, heart lacerations, pericardium lacerations, small and large bowel lacerations, lacerations of both lungs. That's what I read. I don't know if you've heard, it's bothered me ever since it happened. I want to go to the families. In Ohio, just this last weekend, six teenagers died in a car accident. 6 families are tragically where I'm at, where Jenny's at. I can't imagine. One little mistake. I think of Kip every day, every hour, every second. Right now on this journey, it's hard. And I know Jenny can speak for me too. want Kip out there in that audience because he's supposed to be graduating this year. It's not going to happen. This is March, and I've already received 25 graduation invitations of Kip's friends. I don't know how I'm going to make it. One foot in front of the other. The boys were good. They did not drink. This was the last thing Kip said. I was planting flowers. He said, "Mom, I love you." I love you too, son. His goals were high. He loved being very competitive. My life has changed. I am no longer married. I no longer live in the house that Kip was born in. And I take care of Kip's grandma, my mother, that's 88 years old, that cannot fathom this happening. It was her only grandson. That all being said, I know Kip would want us to all go forward with happy memories of him. To strive to be the best that you can be. Together, out of my conversations, people have told me that they have never forgotten their classmate that passed during school years. The sadness becomes good memories. That's all we have is memories now. Why am I here? I don't want anything to happen to any of you. That one split decision can change your life, can change your family's life. I wish you all the best. Have high goals. And Kip, I love you. Thank you.
This is a heavy message that we've kind of put in your lap towards the end of your day, but the beginning of your break. And, you know, there's some things that I would like you to just really think about when you leave here today and in the future. And the first thing is, and you've heard it loud and clear, right, that I need to think about my actions before I do something. Because even though I don't intend to have something tragic happen, it can. Now, hopefully, after listening to our presentation here, nobody's going to drive over 100 miles an hour, right? Nobody's going to drink and drive, because you know the negative consequences of what happens when you do those things. But I want you to ask yourself about the other risks that you take during the week. How many of you respond to a text or send a text during the week while you're in the car? How many of you make that real snide comment real quickly on Facebook that has the ripple effect on other people's lives? And so what we're asking you to do is not just look at the really outward dangerous things that you may be faced with every day, but look a little bit closer to home on just how everything that you're doing is impacting your peers, your siblings, and your community. So number one, think about what you're doing before you do it. The second part that I think is really important for you to deal with is how do I deal with adversity? You know, everyone in this room is going to have some adverse event happen sometime in your life. Hopefully it won't be as tragic as what happened to the families in this case, but something bad is going to happen. And it's how you respond to that tragic situation that is important. If we look at Sam, I mean, would it have been very easy for Sam to just turn around and kind of curl up in a ball, start getting poor grades, turn to drugs and alcohol, isolate himself? It certainly could have happened. But look what he has done with his life. He's moved forward. He's taken the second chances that he's been given, and he's making a difference in all of our lives, and he should really be commended for that. And the mothers in this case, I mean, it is perfectly understandable why they would want to maybe crawl up in a ball and stop living. But they didn't. They're moving forward, and they're trying to make a positive out of a negative. And that's what we're asking you to do. When that adversity is in your face in life, is to try and follow the lead of the people that are involved in this case. And then the last part is this: forgiveness. You know, forgiveness gets kind of a bad rap, doesn't it? Because it kind of, you think about it and you think, well, it has to do with weakness. I have to give in to forgive. But forgiveness can be very liberating. And I ask you this: if these families can forgive Sam for what has happened to them, despite their loss, who is it in your life that you can't forgive? There really isn't anybody out there. And I would encourage you to look in your own lives and to reach out to those people that may have wronged you or made you mad and forgive them. You have been a very, very good audience. It's always a pleasure for me to hear what they have to say, because every time we've gotten up to speak, there is no script. They speak from the heart. But I can tell by looking at each one of you that you've listened and paid close attention to what's going on. Thank you for allowing us to come into your school. We wish you the best of luck in your lives. Please take the messages that we send forward and apply them in your own lives. And the last thing I just want to say to you is that they don't really tell you this, but it's the truth. Their biggest fear is that they're going to be forgotten. Their boys are going to be forgotten. And these were two special boys, and they should never be forgotten. If you would do me one favor and do them one favor, is that sometime tonight before you put your head down to sleep, if you just take a minute to think about them, maybe say a prayer for them if you feel comfortable doing that. It would mean the world to them, and it would mean a world to me. So thank you very much for being here today.